unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, the production of Souls and Liberty, brought to you in partnership with Mypillow.com. What is it about children Catholic bishops don't like, preborn or born? They don't really seem to give a crap about them. And if you're a child, the last place you want to be is between a bishop and a buck. But Judgment Day is now barreling along for the U.S. Catholic bishops and their unethical dealings in the illegal immigration area. A little piece of breaking news here. We'll be visiting it later in the show as well. But J.D. Vance, the sitting vice president of the United States, said, quote, "I think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better." Again, sitting vice president of the United States. I got to tell you, we here at Souls and Liberty, Church Militant, all that, man, are we feeling vindicated in this? Anyway, there are really sort of two judgment days for the bishops as they're staring down the barrel of here on earth and, most importantly, in front of the Supreme Shepherd. So over the last 4 years, for example, the bishops have raked in almost, get your calculator out, $2.5 billion in taxpayer money from the Biden administration. It's a vast network the Bishops' National Conference set up, beginning all the way back in 1969 with the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. Supposedly a one-time collection from the bishops asked for Catholics to pitch in and fight poverty. It's supposed to be a one-time thing. By the way, only after social and moral corruption had been discovered did they stick the word Catholic in front of it. Originally, it was just called the Campaign for Human Development. They thought, hey, yeah, we own that word Catholic, so let's stick it in front of it and give it an air of respectability, which it never really has had. But that was only the first foray into a money grab in the name of social justice. After the corrupt hierarchy figured out the cash cow they were sitting on, they quickly expanded their efforts, multiplied them, doubled, tripled them all over the place. Soon, Catholic Charities, not really Catholic and questionably charitable, was soon petitioning for and receiving federal, and here's an important point, state and local government contracts for at first millions, then tens of millions, and ultimately billions of dollars. A large portion of these funds were directed at bringing in millions of illegal immigrants and then funneling them all over the country. Again, millions and millions of them. The government handouts to hundreds of bishops' agencies, different agencies, remember, not just federal. They're all over the place. They eventually got so large that the administrative costs were pocketed. Because if you're going to do the will of a bureaucracy, you got to make your own bureaucracy to do it. And the bishops did just that. Fully half of the U.S. Bishops' Conference budget almost every year comes from government handouts, government money, which is to say your money. Over the past 4 years in particular, Catholic Charities got the nickname the Illegal Immigrant Travel Agency because of their work at moving millions and millions and millions of illegals all over the country, transportation, hotel, food, clothing, medical, and so on. And while all of that would certainly cost money, so would the staffing of it. Thousands of paid employees, and of course the accompanying bureaucratic bloat of administration, payroll, human resources, employee expense reimbursement, accounting, office expenses, overhead, and so forth. All of it would make the church be so relevant. All the while, the bishops and their corpulent corporation of charity was dead silent on the human cost of helping smuggle in, transport, and stash millions of illegals. And what are those human costs? Child sex trafficking, slavery, rape, child prostitution, drug transport, deaths across the nation of U.S. citizens killed because of those drugs, and many of them young people. The last toll of just children was about 1/3 of a million children that no one knew where they were, much less how to locate them. At least that's what we were told. Biden and his fellow communists kept deadly silent about them. So, of course, the bishops figured if they wanted to stay on board that gravy train, they better keep their pie holes shut as well. So they did. Well, wouldn't you know it? As things turned out, this first week of Trump 2.0, as Catholic Tom Homan led the charge seizing and deporting thousands of criminal illegals, tens of thousands, 80,000 of those 300,000 missing children were found in 1 week. 1 week of raids scattered across the country. In just 1 week, 80,000 missing children who'd been smuggled in as unwitting drug mules and sex commodities, all of a sudden discovered again in 1 week.
Now, the second wave that Tom Homan, the borders are for, Trump has told me about, and all of this will focus on those missing children, hundreds of thousands of them that we know. And that number has started to already come down, Emily, from 300,000. So they've found about 75 to 80,000 of those kids already. If they can get the list of these guys, 4 full days in office for Trump, if they can get the list of where some of those kids have been, and they've been identifying it, since the election, going after them and trying to find those little ones, what in the world was Biden's administration doing? What was Secretary of Homeland Mayorkas doing when he said to the committees on Capitol Hill, we don't know where those kids are, I'll look into it? No, dude, you obviously had a better way to find them, and you didn't do your job. I can't believe they impeached him and didn't remove him.
Turns out none of this really was that hard work after all. None of it. It's almost like if the bishops, remember, they are the largest NGO, non-government agency, organization involved in transporting the illegals all over the country. They got more money than any other group in America. What if they had said something? What if they would have insisted on something? Maybe some of these young people, children, could have been rescued earlier, years earlier. Or maybe the bishops could have checked with their Catholic charities offices all over the nation. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of them all over the nation. Maybe they could have picked up the phone and said, yo, Catholic Charities there in Idaho. Yo, Catholic Charities there in San Francisco. What about all these multiple hundreds of reports we keep hearing about all of these kids being smuggled and 400,000 of them missing? Could they have put some time and effort into uncovering the dark, evil underbelly of the illegal transportation business that they were getting rich from? Of course, they released their statement about how mean and cruel it is to deport illegals, blah, 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 blah. I've been hearing this for decades. But their moral capital is at zero to pretend that they care about kids. They do not. Not only have they done next to nothing to defend children in the womb, the bishops have also been masters at pretending they knew nothing about thousands of homosexual clerical rapes of altar boys. So they just pulled out that old playbook again, which is to say we're just going to ignore it and carry on until we get caught. Well, you got caught. Listen to the Vice President of the United States. Well, as Trump 2.0 unfolds, it's pretty certain that the social justice gravy train, many of the overweight clerics who have feasted on that for so long, is about to pull into the station, and it's time for everyone now to just get off the train. That's likely the largest costs the bishops will pay on earth, that is, the loss of federal funding. Because it's hard to imagine that money continuing to flow to their coffers when the need is no longer there. ICE is doing the transporting now, not the bishops. And there is now an on-the-record denunciation of the bishops, again, by the sitting vice president of the United States, a devout Catholic, an actual devout Catholic. So be on the lookout for a large number of layoffs soon from all these bishops' committees and all these Catholic charities. Where are you getting your money from? However, considering the cost in souls and bodies the bishops and their staffs have been party to, that they've racked up, judgment from the Trump administration should not be the judgment that they're concerned with. What is it about children that the U.S. bishops seem to dislike so much? They don't fight for them to be born. They don't fight to protect them from being sexually abused, and they don't fight to protect them from being sex trafficked. And that is our information for today. Stephen, this is Stephen Wynn joining us, Souls and Liberty contributor. Stephen, this is, the irreligious left, of which unfortunately many clerics and bishops in the Catholic Church are part of as well. But, think about what this, Episcopalian bishop, not a church, said to Trump and, insult. it's amazing to me. It's like a big giant, sunlight on all of this, that coming here to the fore is religion, specifically Christianity, and pinpointedly Catholicism. Specifically Catholicism, as all of this remaking of America is well underway. It's fascinating. I got to tell you, I know you and I back in Detroit used to spend a lot of time talking about all this stuff with this immigration crap. We put together a press conference in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club to spotlight all that a couple summers ago. You take a victory lap, sir.
Yeah, the irreligious left. I am just full of nothing but disgust for them. And I'm done with them. Just like we hear the Democrats still trotting out their tiresome, worn out talking points, just lie after lie. It is all garbage. And now we're hearing that stuff basically from the pulpit. This faux bishop in Washington, D.C., this little waif of a woman getting up before a national crowd, lecturing the president and vice president on the virtues of allowing millions of criminals into this country, extolling the virtues of hacking off children's genitals, ruining them physically, emotionally, psychologically, and yes, spiritually. I am so done with people like that. Just this ridiculous harangue, just nothing but diabolical poison dripping from her serpent's tongue atop this hollowed out, ruined pulpit in a dead and dying church, a prelate, a pretend prelate of a denomination that was born out of the lust of an English king 500 years ago, which in a century ago embraced contraception, thereby launching all of the Western world onto the path of total moral annihilation. She has no authority. She has no truth. She has no life within her. And the same is true of most Catholic bishops today. I'm just done listening to their horse shite. It's nothing but politics. And frankly, they can just all go to their eternal reward and embrace their father, the devil, because that's where they're from. That's really where my mindset is now. I'm probably going to have to go to confession after this episode because that's where I'm at right now. But I'm just done. I'm sick of it. I'm sick unto death of it.
Well, there's quite a number of saints saying that if you don't have anger, when anger is the correct response, that is a sin. There are some things that require this kind of response. Now, it's interesting,
right.
They what's his face, Seitz, who's on the Social Justice Immigration Committee of the bishops. Yeah. I don't look in any of the, Gospels and see the various committees that the apostles formed. But as you sort of survey all of this, he made a comment about, you mean Trump and blah, 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 not keeping with the Christian values. And of course, what the Pope was going on about the other day, same thing last week about, a Christian build a wall. I mean, aren't you sitting behind like the largest construction of a wall, in like the history of humanity, maybe next to the Great Wall of China? And for, people build walls to keep people out. That's the point, except the Soviet Union, which built a wall to keep people in. And, you look at all this, you're like, okay, so Seitz made his comment about how mean and horrible and blah, 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 you got to love the ignorance. And then Vance, I think Vance is of the exact same mind you and I are. He's vice president, so he can't quite, rip into this the way, we have and many other Catholics have felt for a very long time. But so it'll be curious. Are the bishops going to issue a response to his response? I kind of think not, because they're snakes in the grass. They will be on the phone with their little, secret minions and, put the word out. And James Martin will be there about how unchristian, J.D. Vance is. And, the American Magazine will do some expose on, J.D. Vance isn't the Pope and all this kind of stuff and everything. But it's clear what's happening in America politically. And of course, we can help bring about because we get to vote in that situation. That same thing is happening, the same undergirdings of all of that is translating into the Catholic Church as well. We don't get to vote for bishops, vote them in or out, but there is an open rebellion against these guys' manifest evil for some of them, indifference for others. It's why isn't the Pope sending the papal nuncio to speak at the March for Life? J.D. Vance is the one up there speaking. Good. I mean, good for him. Glad. I'm not saying don't let him talk. I'm saying, where's the church's official representation there? Well, the church's official representation is all those tens and tens and tens of thousands of mostly Catholics out there doing the march. That's what it is. That's revolting. So, Pope Francis doesn't have much longer to live. I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm hard pressed to think he's going to be alive 10 more years. He took another fall. Was it a week ago or a week and a half ago? So there is an opportunity for what's happening in D.C. with MAGA. I don't know what's the initials. Make Catholicism great again. What is it? MCGA, McGook, whatever that would be. It's very, it's like when the Democrats and the dying media are on their way out the door and just getting steamrolled by common sense, truth, justice, all of it. That same thing is happening in the church. The change won't come about exactly the same way because, again, we don't vote, but the same dynamic is at play.
Yes. Gosh, where to start? I agree with your sentiments 100%. Yeah, the USCCB released a statement basically, condemning the action that we're taking against illegal migrants. Frankly, it wasn't worth wiping our what's with, basically. and any response that they make to Vance's statement, which I would like to play for our viewers here in a little bit, it'll be the same thing. It'll be the same way. Yep. These men are completely and utterly divorced from reality. They issue these leftist statements, not out of true, the Catholic spirit, but because they recognize that their coffers are going to be impacted by this. Sure. As you said, immigration is the cash cow for the USCCB. And again, totally divorced from reality. These guys live in gilded mansions, protected by 24-hour security. And frankly, the only thing they have to worry about, they don't have to worry about being mugged or killed in the streets like regular Americans do. They're only concerned, excuse me for saying this, but is that their rent boy will mug them after an act of copulation. That's pretty much all they have to worry about in terms of safety. And for them to get up and lecture us after they have seen the news reports of Americans being killed by illegal migrants, they've seen the toll it's taking on the country, and they don't care. Yeah. They do not have our backs. They certainly don't have our souls. And again, I'm just done. And I have been so gratified. You have seen the backlash from non-Catholics and Catholics alike online, and from pious Catholics, good, faithful Catholics, who are basically saying, no, bishops, we're not listening to this. You are on planet Mars, and that's what needs to happen. I'm not going to listen to another bishop when it comes to a political matter. I'm just not doing it until they can actually demonstrate the fire of the Holy Spirit. When they start speaking truth in these matters, okay, you've got my attention. I'm not listening to any more democratic talking points from Bishop Seitz or Bishop Supich. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, they just moved. The Pope just moved. What's his face, McElroy, to D.C. He's going to be a voice to speak against Trump. Shut up.
Yep.
Shut up.
Yep. Exactly.
McElroy, really, McElroy, who was informed about Cardinal McCarrick's evil, was informed and completely just ignored it. They don't care about bodies or souls. They care about bucks, and that's it. Now, does this evenly distribute to every single bishop to the exact same degree? No. I mean, there's people over on like the Supich, McElroy, Donald Wuerl. Remember Donald Wuerl and his, that was decades and decades ago. No, it wasn't. It was about 6 minutes ago. There's that crowd who were kind of the sexual revolution bishops, who were in seminary and all that was going on and just embraced it. And then you move further and further and further down the line. But I'm telling you, even the good bishops Why aren't they standing up challenging their brother bishops? Why don't they publish something? I mean, they're afraid they're going to get the Bishop Strickland treatment. The fact that they won't say anything. I have multiple times had conversations personally, my mouth to their ear, sitting in a room by myself with them, talking about all of this. Like, why won't you say something? And it's like the decorum crowd among the bishops, like John Thune in the Senate. Republican majority leaders say, we just don't operate that way. I actually said to one bishop, I'm not going to say who it was, but I was actually having a discussion with one bishop as getting ready for right out in the wake of the Cardinal McCarrick news in 2018. I went to his chancery, made an appointment with him, went to his chancery and sat there and said, hey, when the bishops meet in 2018 in Baltimore, can you stand up? Can you get on the horn with other of these good bishops and challenge the senior leadership of the church in America, those bishops, those cardinals, and say, y'all need to resign? And immediately it's like, well, that's not really how it works. Well, what do you mean how it works? It would. The cover up? So, the money that they have made off just illegal immigration, and then all the Catholic charities, collections that they take up all the time, and the Catholic relief services and this and that. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars to make their little Washington, D.C. headquarters there, the USCCB headquarters, turn into this bloated thing. Back when Obama was, had he built, I can't remember if he'd been sworn in or it was getting close, but right around that time of the election in 2008, somebody sent me video from their cell phone video, driving down like the parking area for all of the USCCB stuff, all the headquarters there in DC. They just drove by very slowly. Obama sticker, Obama sticker, Obama sticker, Obama sticker, Obama sticker, lover of abortion, Obama sticker, all of it. See, the USCCB has this like reputation of, it's the bishops' conference, which it is, but it's largely a lobbying effort on the part of unfaithful, I don't even know if all of them are Catholic, but certainly unfaithful to Christ and his church followers who just petition Congress for money. They're a lobbying group. That's all the USCCB is. Now, if the bishops are too stupid to realize that, well, then that's on them. If the bishops are okay with that because somehow they've rationalized, well, we'll get a few $1 billion and we'll spend a few $100 million on our bloated bureaucracy here, and we'll look relevant and important, and we get to go. I mean, shut up. I mean, the risk that they put everybody's souls in because of who they are and the authority and the office they hold, and not to mention, most of all, their own. It's revolting. It's revolting. And I haven't been able to look at a bishop, one of these typical Americans. I just haven't been able to look at them in, 2-3 years. It gets way too close to an occasion of sin. And I went to a couple parishes here in Houston and heard that a bishop and I'll just say a couple prelates I couldn't go to the Mass. I couldn't go to the Mass. And it's nothing to do with, me judging them. There's nothing to do with that. It's my internal revulsion against people who are the successors of the apostles, destroying actively, passively, or at least undermining the faith. They don't believe the faith, or if they do, they got a really weird way of showing it.
Yeah, exactly. I've just been thinking, the past week has been absolutely incredible. It's been
glorious.
It's been glorious. This country has been suffocated. We've been being suffocated for years and years and years, and suddenly we're getting oxygen again. And then the result is just, it's exhilarating. It's life-saving, frankly. And I just think, again, about the lost opportunities. If we were seeing something similar going on inside the church in America, what I mean, there would be a harvest of millions of souls right now
Sure there would
if
be.
we had someone if we had bishops who were preaching, who were calling out, just demonstrating truth with the fire of the Holy Spirit. So basically, religious versions of what Trump is right now. There would be no stopping what we could accomplish. It just boggles the mind, and I just think, what's happening right now with the purge of the U.S. political institutions, that needs to be happening inside the church. We need a Trumpian prelate, basically. I am more than ready for Pope Francis to go off to his eternal reward, whatever that may be, and for us to get someone who is truly on fire for God, who is committed, come life or death, to truth. And he needs to purge every single church in every single country across the world, but especially the West.
Yep.
The church in Europe is dead. It is on life support in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and it is very sick here. We've talked about there are signs of hope, bright lights popping up, throughout the church here in the U.S., and thank God for that. But it's going to take a lot of time for all of that to really start to flower, for a major recovery to kick in. And frankly, I'm impatient right now, having seen what can be accomplished politically
in a week.
When you have strong in a week. I am eager for something similar to happen inside the church, and that's up to God. And I don't know. I am sick unto death of the rot. You were brought up in the hippy dippy church of the 60s and 70s. I was brought up in the church of the 80s and the 90s. By the time I was coming up, the revolutionary zeal that everyone was drunk on in the 60s and 70s, that had dissipated. And I grew up in the church of the hangover, where there was nothing left but garbage and people passed out on the floor, metaphorically speaking. And I am ready. I am ready for a church that is on fire, that serves as a light to the world. And again, I know, everything. God knows what he's doing. Everything happens in his time. But I'll just say I'm ready for an end to the rot.
It is interesting. The very last, yes, of course, everything happens in God's time. He's in control of the whole bit. But it doesn't prevent us from saying, hey, could you step on the gas a little bit, Jesus?
Right. Yeah,
very, or at least have that sentiment. The very last word in the scripture is come, Lord Jesus, Maranatha. So, we're going to take a little break a second. Before we do, I want to play that clip from the phony bishop in the phony church. And as you listen to her, Kashana Bishop, she's not even ordained. She can't. It's impossible for her to be in. The church she belongs to is founded on adultery and murder. So, that's all you need to know. But when you listen to her, listen to it here. It's only a few seconds we're going to play. And say, is there anything in there that the average typical Catholic bishop would disagree with? Take a listen.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Stephen, our point, before we take a little quick break here, please, that's exactly what this is. That could have been a Catholic bishop. Pretty much any Catholic bishop around the United States today. Maybe some wouldn't be quite that data, but they're so blinded because they've accepted heresy in their dioceses, in their seminaries, the whole bit and everything else. Yes, there is a turn beginning, but it takes a long time to turn an aircraft carrier around. And in the meantime, you've got all these, the captain and the whole, control. They're all like drunk on power and spinning the steer wheel. It's all over the place. There's no difference between what she said and what probably 90+%, if not more, of the Catholic bishops actually think also.
Yeah, exactly. And it just
that's why they all take up the Catholic Charities donation. That's why they all back this. It's all of it. That's why. She's saying, at least she had the whats to get up in the pulpit and say it directly. I mean, it's revolting what she said, but the Catholic bishops don't say that. There's always this very carefully worded statement, and we have to and twisting church teaching and the whole bit. I mean, she's already twisting church teaching because of her whole condition. But it's take us to the break.
Yeah, I agree. It's we hear nothing practically but just this flaccid philosophizing, this effete, weak enforcement of theological truth from bishops, and it just boggles the mind because they're essentially sinning their way into irrelevance, total irrelevance. People just aren't going to be listening to them, and remember, the most committed Catholics in this country are not the liberals who are pro-abortion and pro-LGBT and all of this. The most committed Catholics in this country, those who are going to ride any storm out, come what may, they're the faithful, the pious, they're the Orthodox Catholics. And they do not share this garbage, this mindset that the bishops are putting out, the same mindset she put out. You want to keep shrinking your flock? Keep doing this, you idiots. Just shut up. That's where I'm at. Shut up. That's
more polite than I would say. If you like what we do here at Souls and Liberty, please, we're gonna follow us, subscribe, get on our email list. Click that donate button that's available for you on that page. This is what we do. We talk about the interplay between the temporal order and the spiritual order, these two realities, how they clash. And boy, you can't get a more like right in your face version of the clash than this that's going on right now with Trump back in the office and the whole immigration thing and how the bishops have used that to, feathered their nest, doesn't even come close to it. So if you like what we talk about here and how we talk about it here, please click on the donate button, support. In the meantime, we'll step away for one quick little plug here for Mypillow.com. We'll be right back.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free.
From all of us here at MyPillow,
thanks America!
All right, welcome back. We're talking about the terror of the U.S. bishops and how they have participated, U.S. Catholic bishops, and how they've participated in the destruction of America along a very wide swath of things. Here's a little point. Still, to this day, even with Roe v. Wade overturned in the Dobbs decision, 50 years. And think about all of the collections the bishops take up, the national collections. There's been hundreds of them in this half century. To this day, not one has been collected to help the pro-life cause. Not one in half a century. They've taken up dozens and dozens and dozens for immigration and all of this and climate change, and it never stops. So, their priorities are completely out of whack. And, we all have to answer to God, every one of us, but not every one of us is a bishop that has that grace of office. So, speaking of the bishops, I talked about it earlier, Stephen, J.D. Vance, devout Catholic, who believes the teachings of the church, at least so far as he understands, is a convert. So, it's not like he's a theologian or something. But nonetheless, you don't have to be a theologian to understand the kind of, just normal presented to you truths of the faith.
Yes, exactly. And he gave a great statement, basically a great response. He was asked about the USCCB's stance, their statement that they released earlier, and he gave a very nice, measured, but solid response to this question. He let them know how disappointed he is in them. Let's got a clip of that. Let's take a listen.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops this week condemned some of the executive orders signed by President Trump, specifically those allowing immigration and customs enforcement to enter churches and to enter schools. Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
Well, let me address this. Of course, if you have a person who is convicted of a violent crime, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, you have to go and get that person to protect the public safety. That's not unique to immigration. But let me just address this particular issue, Margaret, because as a practicing Catholic, I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line? We are going to enforce immigration law. We're going to protect the American people.
Yeah.
Donald Trump promised to do that. And I believe the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, if they're worried about the humanitarian costs of immigration enforcement, let them talk about the children who have been sex trafficked because of the wide open border of Joe Biden.
You personally
let them talk
support
about
them going into
people like
schools
Laken
and
Riley
churches.
who were brutally murdered. I support us doing law enforcement against violent criminals, whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe. Let me ask this question, Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce
But
the
that
law
also
everywhere
has
to protect Americans.
Effect, a chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling effect on illegal immigrants coming
into
into our country.
You think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals from
I think the U.S.
law
Conference
enforcement?
of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better.
Yes, I agree 100%. That is a true Catholic. And, he hopes that they'll do better. I do too. I'll just say I'm not confident that will happen with this crop of bishops anyway.
No, and to the point of this crop of bishops, I mean, all of I'm calling them the sexual revolution bishops, because these guys were all like in their 20s and in seminary when the sexual revolution hit. They had all these crazy professors and faculty members and spiritual direction and everything else that just kind of excused all that stuff. Even to this day, everybody's like, oh, Bishop Barron, oh God, worship Bishop Barron. Bishop Barron calls all these issues the pelvic issues, kind of like, minimizing them. Really, is it a pelvic issue that 400,000 children are helped by Catholic charities to be smuggled into America and then sold into sex trafficking rings? And, who knows? I mean, you know that some of these children have been murdered by whoever it is that's in charge of them and all that. Is that a pelvic issue, Bishop Barron? They're all about making sure they protect their own assets, literally, the various meanings of that word. And it's disgusting. They are an obstruction to people coming to the faith, coming to realize the holiness of the church as she is in her indefectible self. They are an obstacle to that. Good Lord. I mean, good luck when you die. You know, again, we've all got all of our sins to answer for. We've all got to stand in front of the, you know, the supreme judge and the supreme shepherd. But I mean, some people get judged by a different standard because they need to be judged by a different standard. You don't get to be a leader in the body of Christ and then lead people away from the truth. That's what the devil does.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I think so many laity are not going to be following that, and
why would they?
Rightly so. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, why would they? I mean, you know,
Right.
why would you follow what is essentially the Democratic Party in robes? That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, here's another example.
And
I gave just before the break. I gave the example of like never taking up a pro-life collection. Where is the lobbying on the part of the bishops' lobbyists at the USCCB to defund Planned Parenthood? Where's that? I mean, even without, depending on what year it is, between $500 million and $500 million and $750 million in our money being given to Planned Parenthood, excluding that, Planned Parenthood still turns a profit on the bodies of hundreds of thousands of children they help kill, and others they give puberty blockers to, and this and that and everything else. I mean, they've branched into, you know, they've opened up franchise, philosophy, places now as well. Let's do the transgender thing. Let's do the surgeries. Let's kill children. Let's pass out birth control like it's candy. I mean, on and on and on. Pelvic issues again, by the way, Bishop Barron. Where's your denunciation of Planned Parenthood getting money? Why doesn't the USCCB issue a statement and say, hey, this bill has funding for the whoever? Where are your statements that you're reading into the press? I mean, they sure got to the forefront fast as soon as the illegal immigration stuff started. I mean, they talk about not letting grass grow under your feet. Why isn't that an initiative every single year? They go on about climate change, illegal immigration, blah, 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 blah. They never stop. Every single Democratic Party talking point, check. And then when it's a Catholic talking point, like, oh, well, yes, abortion is a bad thing. But, it's as bad as also not being employed. So Cardinal Supich, abortion's a bad thing, but so's not having a job. Yeah, they don't have an equivalence, you loser. So, it's loser is not the word I wanted to say, by the way, but I think people probably got that. I'm falling into this category also, what's going on over in Rome with Pope Francis. Talk about a stumbling block.
Oh, yeah. And it's just, and everyone sees through it. I've seen post after post after post online of people calling him out for being a total and utter hypocrite. He condemns Trump's deportation program, as a cataclysm, basically, and he issues this statement. It doesn't occur to him that the absurdity of it. Issues this statement from within the Vatican Palace, which is nestled behind enormous walls surrounding all of Vatican City, and not a single room inside the Vatican is currently housing any immigrant, any migrant, any boat person from North Africa or the Middle East.
Now, and don't forget, all the guards there are armed as well.
100%.
No immigrants. You can't get in. All the guards are. I mean, it's like the model state of what America should be.
Right.
Armed security, guard walls. You can't get in. I mean, that's the way it should be. But once again, rules for me, not for thee.
That's exactly right. And Tom Homan, the new border czar, who is Catholic, he was asked about this late last week, and his response, I loved it because it echoes what so many Catholics are feeling right now about Pope Francis and his statement. Let's take a listen.
The Pope this week said that it's a disgrace what we're now doing with this new government, deporting all of these people. We've got, obviously there's going to be a lot of media searching for the sad stories here, trying to turn public opinion against this operation. What's your message to the American people as you guys do this work?
Well, let me give a message to the Pope. I'm a lifelong Catholic. I was born Catholic. I've been through Catholic doctrine. Look, he only concentrated on fixing the Catholic Church, first of all. He's got big problems there. In the Vatican, they have a wall around the Vatican. If you illegally enter the Vatican, The crime is serious. You'll be charged with a serious crime, be jailed.
Yeah.
So he can protect the Vatican where he lives. He can build a wall where he lives. Where American people are not allowed that? No. Securing the border saves lives. He needs to understand that. We secure the border. When less people come, less women get raped by the cartel. Less children die in the river. Less Americans die from fentanyl overdoses. He ought to stick to it. He ought to stick to the Catholic Church and fix that. That's a mess.
So yeah, again, the hypocrisy. It is so blatant. It's so transparent. And yet the Pope just doesn't get it. He just does not get it. And
I think something notable here, Stephen, in Trump 2.0. I mean, Tom Homan, Catholic, speaking truth to like the most power you can have on earth. J.D. Vance, again, Catholic, devout Catholic, speaking truth to the power of the USCCB and that whole horrible stuff. John Ratcliffe, who's now the CIA director. He's not exactly going to say something about this. It's not his particular wheelhouse. But again, solid Catholic. Then you move over to Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, solid Catholic. There is a Catholic, I don't want to say Catholic led per se, but certainly heavily Catholic influenced revolution going on in politics in the United States. And it's insane that the U.S. bishops just cannot see this, that everybody else can see. I mean, we talk with Protestants all the time, and they'll say, wow, you Catholics, you've led the pro-life movement for 50 years. It was all your thing. Nellie Gray, who started the pro-life march, the March for Life, God bless her. I knew her personally. You talk about a dedicated Catholic. She gave up an incredibly lucrative law business to stay in that little tiny apartment in D.C. and organize that thing every year, and hated abortion. All of the great, huge moral pushes to correspond with natural law that are going on in the country right now are being led by faithful Catholics who are denouncing the hierarchy for their hypocrisy and their evil. Well, I mean, bishops, hello.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is the time. This is our time to do that. It is the time to do that. And, whatever leadership we get or don't get from the chanceries and the dioceses across this country, so be it. That we keep fighting.
I mean, they're going to get fired. They're just going to get laid off. I mean, you talk about a midnight purge, it won't be a bishop doing it, but they're going to sit here and they're going to look at the numbers because it's all they care about. I mean, you got to understand that that's what bishops care about. That's it. They've got some rationalization in their head that, we just have to make sure that the institution is protected and completely forget the mission of the institution. Like the mission of the institution is self-preservation. And I'm talking about the church, the indefectible bride of Christ. They don't protect that. The Holy Spirit does. But as far as the little individual chanceries and parish offices and this and that and everything else, those aren't like protected by the will of God. Particularly when they're spewing out cooperation with the devil. You ain't going to last very long. Remember Jesus when he comes to in the beginning part of the book of Revelation, I'm going to take your lampstand away, individual church. I'm going to take your lampstand away, individual church. You have forsaken me. You have this, you have that. You've embraced evil, all of it. I mean, these bishops really think that's not going to somehow happen to them, their diocese and the whole bit. I mean, these chanceries are going to start shrinking staff-wise. PDQ, because where's the money coming from? You don't have this Catholic Charities bloat thing going on anymore. I mean, those funds, they're already frozen, but they're about to be said, sorry, thank you for your work, we're done. All that money is going to be redirected now to getting these people out of here. Catholic Charities is going to be a part of that. And even if they said, we've changed our mind, we want to just say, well, that's good, we'll go use your own private funds to do it. The bishops are sitting on billions and billions and billions of dollars in endowment funds all around the country, probably tens of billions. They've got their little secret slush fund in Omaha at that insurance company that there's like 25 bishops on the board of. There's billions and billions and billions of dollars in that account. So, the fact that, it's like Planned Parenthood. Again, you're already making this enormous profit. Why do you need government money on top of it? Well, because you're greedy, rhymes with astards. And that's what this is. Good. Cut them off. Cut them off. maybe as they watch their entire diocese to just deteriorate around them, maybe they'll come to their senses.
Yeah. And let's remember, it's not just the federal funding that they have to be worried about. What they're saying right now, what they're doing, that is ticking off a lot of Catholics in the pew. We saw a massive drop-off in weekly donations from Catholics following the outbreak of the clerical sex abuse crisis, the McCarrick revelations in 2018. And it wouldn't surprise me a bit if we would see something similar if this kind of garbage keeps up.
Yeah, I mean, the scales here are that it's faithful Catholics, much more so than the liberal Catholics who go to Mass. They just are. Mm-hmm. So the day-to-day money going into the plates or Sunday to Sunday or weekly collections or whatever. Now, that's not the lion's share of the bishop's money. It's the interest they get off their endowments. I mean, the Archdiocese of Detroit, for example, our old stomping ground, had almost $500 million, like $440 million in endowment. I mean, how much does that, spit off every, in interest payments? Just tens of millions of dollars. So, they're not reliant on that money. The parishes are reliant to keep the parish doors open, but that's not going to affect. You can a bishop like Supich can shut down 2/3 of the parishes in his archdiocese. He doesn't care. He's still got his health insurance, top flight health insurance. He's still got his security. He's still got his drivers. He's never misses a meal, as most of the bishops clearly don't. So the whole way that business is done in the church in the United States needs to change. And this may very well be the beginning of it. I know we got a couple of things we want to get to, in sort of the pushing back on it. It's like the destroying of the status quo in the federal government, how that's mirroring in the church. But Trump went straight for FEMA over the weekend.
He did, yes. Yeah. Again, just amazing what you can accomplish with a president who cares. He went down there, got boots on the ground in Western North Carolina, which 4 months after being destroyed by Hurricane Helene is still just in rubble. Basically, people living in tents. Within hours, people were being moved from tents into furnished apartments, no longer forced to spend the night in freezing temperatures. Very good stuff. And he basically, he took a look around, saw what FEMA has not been doing, and basically put them on notice. Basically, there's either going to be a massive reform of their mission, or we're going to kill them outright. And from subsequent statements that he's made, I wouldn't surprise me a bit if we do away with them altogether. Yeah. It's very interesting. We'll talk about this a little bit further. We've got a clip of him talking about this. Let's take a listen.
I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and, whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area. And they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away, and we pay directly. We pay a percentage to the state, but the state should fix it.
Yeah. So basically, it was really interesting. Trump, whether he knows it or not, in recommending that we get rid of this ineffective, ridiculous federal bureaucracy to take care of, disaster cleanup, that we basically do it at the state level. And it's just so interesting because, again, unwittingly or not, he's really kind of reflecting the Catholic principle of subsidiarity.
Yes, he is.
Taking care of things at a local level, and that only makes sense. It's where things can be taken care of, dealt with effectively. At the smallest level, the local level, state level. In that instance, that only makes sense. Because the farther you get up into the bureaucracy, you're going to be far less effective than people who are on the ground, who know the situation, who know their land, and all of that kind of thing. It was just really interesting. That really stood out to me. That again, he probably doesn't realize it, but he's recommending a Catholic principle there.
Well, I mean, again, it's that whole, what's happening in the political scene. Again, whether they realize it or not, some of them probably do. But, it's Catholic principles, Catholic theological and philosophical principles that are being applied, getting rid of the Department of Education. Why? It's the exact same thing as FEMA, because this stuff should be handled on a state level. And even on a state level, it should be handled by county officials. They know their kids. They know their, all of that stuff by local school districts. Here's the money. You guys know how to spend it best. We don't need a, 4,500 person bureaucracy in DC to hand down laws and rules about how kids are to be taught nationally. Same thing with FEMA. I mean, this is going to spread like crazy. It already is. But I think one last thing we want to visit is J.D. Vance at the March for Life in DC. Again,
yeah, exactly.
Glad he's saying it. It should be a bishop up there saying it. But absent the bishop, we'll take the vice president of the United States. Let's take a listen.
Now, the task of our movement is to protect innocent life. It's to defend the unborn, and it's also to be pro-family and pro-life in the fullest sense of that word possible. Now, across my own lifetime, I can't tell you the number of friends and other acquaintances I've had who, facing a pregnancy or the prospect of one, react not with joy but with concern. They wonder, how can they afford it? What will it mean for their education, their career, their relationship, or their family? And I know how many of you in this crowd have devoted immeasurable time and resources to help answer those questions and to lend a hand to young people facing a moment of desperation. But by and large, our society, our country, has not yet stepped up in the way you have. And our government certainly has failed in that important responsibility. We failed a generation not only by permitting a culture of abortion on demand, but also by neglecting to help young parents achieve the ingredients they need to live a happy and meaningful life. A culture of radical individualism took root. One where the responsibilities and joys of family life were seen as obstacles to overcome, not as personal fulfillment or personal blessings. Our society has failed to recognize the obligation that one generation has to another is a core part of living in a society to begin with. So let me say very simply, I want more babies in the United States of America. I want more happy children in our country. And I want beautiful young men and women who are eager to welcome them into the world and eager to raise them. And it is the task of our government to make it easier for young moms and dads to afford to have kids, to bring them into the world, and to welcome them as the blessings that we know they are here at the March for Life.
Yeah, just again, I love what he's saying. It's not just fighting abortion itself. Yes, that's absolutely has to continue. Efforts have to ramp up with that. But at the same time, we have to make this country a good place to raise children. We've got to get lowered interest rates so that parents can have children without, being in poverty. We've got to have lower interest rates so that people can buy houses, so that people can really, live a joyful life bringing children into this world. There's just all kinds of stuff that we can do. And that is very much, I'm very happy to see, part of the pro-life movement now.
Stop taxing tips and things. Get rid of the federal income tax. Eliminate FEMA. Eliminate the Department of Education. Get rid of these things. Get rid of all the inspector generals. I mean, you can see where this is all going. That's why the Democrats are ripping their hair out and screaming and going nuts, because they know where it's going. So that's good. Oh, by the way, all those people that are involved in this, prosecute them all for treason. That's kind of icing on the cake. We'll take that too. Stephen, thanks very much for joining us. Great conversation. It needs to be had, and we'll be revisiting this conversation frequently, much more frequently, because there's going to be developments. That was week one. What's going to happen this week? Holy smokes. Stephen, God bless you. Thank you. All right, that's all here from Houston, Texas. I'm Gary Michael Vorse coming to you here from the Lone Star State. Yeehaw! Thanks very much for tuning in. God love you.